makes today's event, I think, especially sweet because we have Nick back and we have all the time zones accounted for, and I think it's going to be a really nice chat. So for folks that don't know about the work of Hello Computer, quickly introduce that Hello Computer has been an agency partner of Apostrophes for a while, since really early days of Apostrophe 2, using it across a range of projects for their own clients. I'll let Nick kind of give more of a background on the business and what kind of stuff they do. But yeah, I mean, just a fantastic partner. We've collaborated on internal projects like some of our starter kits, as well as some worked together on various different clients and their needs with Apostrophe. And the feedback from the Hello Computer team has definitely been helpful for us as we've evolved different versions of Apostrophe over the years and grown the capabilities of the platform. So really thrilled to have Nick here as the technology kind of leader within Hello Computer, deep understanding of all things Apostrophe. I think some really thoughtful and really great approaches to how they're using Apostrophe on their team. So yeah, decided to, I guess, hand it off to Nick and let you take it away from here.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I was actually so excited to present last time. I was prepared to get up at 2:00 in the morning in the time zone I was in. And yes, I was up at 2:00 in the morning to present, only to find that it was the wrong time. It's nice to actually be back now. Yeah. But yeah, like, as Alex said, Hello Computer's been around for a very long time. We have an agency in South Africa based in Johannesburg. We've also got an office in Cape Town. In fact, it was originally where Hello Computer came from, was Cape Town. And we've been servicing a number of clients within South Africa and outside of South Africa now for a very, very long time. When I took over Hello Computer was in 2017, and we've gone through a number of different clients, and we are now in 2024. We've actually gone through a rebrand. It's something that happened last year. So Hello Computer is no longer Hello Computer. We're now called Alt Studios. So we had a name change, and kind of haven't really looked back. We've just decided to continue. It was just a restructure in our business that happened last year. But yeah, just to basically give you a brief overview of the type of work that we've been doing, it's largely been for clients within the marketing realm. We create anything ranging from landing pages, brochure, websites, all the way through to large complex platforms for corporates. And I'll actually get into that. And this whole presentation is more, the journey that we've taken with Apostrophe CMS and kind of why we decided to take a look at the content management system in the first place. But just to give you some background on us, we're a preferred partner. We've obviously been working very closely with the Apostrophe team since, I would say, around 2017. We've built over 260 websites in Apostrophe with 5 featured in the gallery. It might be more now or less, I'm not actually sure. But I've seen 5 there. And yeah, 6 years is basically what we've been a preferred partner. I would say 7 years because we've grown in 2024, but I think in total so far, if you have the current calendar, it's 56. It's a great CMS, and we've obviously been using it a lot. And this is kind of going from early days, seeing what was possible with the build module from the Apostrophe team, and then how we can customize it to fit our purposes. And where it all started was in 2017, one of the large projects that I had to oversee. I had to take over a project from an outgoing technical director, was South African tourism. I have a video over here, not really going to go through the whole thing, but I just want to briefly talk about it and kind of show sections of this. Put the audio off quickly. So this was an actual platform for South African tourism in South Africa. They're the official tourism provider for the country. We had to create a massive solution that worked for 35 different country managers. So the United States, UK, most of European countries, and going into Asian markets as well. So it was a large focus on localization. Content needed to be translated into 10 different languages. And there was a ton of pages that needs to be created. They obviously need to leverage off a reusable component library, driven from the fact that content managers were sitting in different parts of the world. They have to look after their content themselves as a responsibility for these country managers to undertake. And on top of that, at the time I was given just put in charge of getting this build over the line. And I wouldn't say it was very far down its actual production cycle. The design had been completed. The developers had already started working on it within what would be perceived as maybe a modern tech stack. It was Angular and Umbraco running the CMS in the background, so .NET on the back end, and then an API of just all this data that's provided to the front end. And I'm actually just going to go forward here. Let me quickly go past. So this thing took an extremely long time to build. I mean, I think in a lot of cases, there are massive platforms that we have to put together. They do take a while. It took over 2 years from inception to go live. And that was just essentially the first phase of the project. And at the time, Angular 2 wasn't even out of beta. We basically using beta and eventually converted it over to version 7 as we're building the project. And it took a while to get there. Now, it's not the same as like most brochure websites put together. I mean, this website has about 28,000 different pages of content. And the large complexity really surrounds the business operations behind it. And also the infrastructure needs, because there was a massive amount of media budget that was getting pushed to this in South African rand terms, about 350 million rand annually that pushed to the platform. As we were going through this whole build, there's obviously a lot of things that I looked at before, but it would be so much easier if we were actually working in just a different tech stack. I think the guys actually set themselves up with something that was going to take a long, arduous process. And, for me, essentially, when I looked at the team, I was kind of considering what our skills are. What is the common skill set that we have across the people in the team that we could all work on? At the time, Angular wasn't really, Angular 2 essentially wasn't really something that I had an internal capable set to work with. We had largely come from a JavaScript to jQuery background, and the idea of using Sass as a CSS compiler, and using Gulp as a task runner with Node.js from a front end need just to actually produce things. But I really didn't want us to have this tech stack fragmentation that existed, where certain projects are getting done in WordPress, whereas other guys were more familiar with .NET. It just made a complicated mess when it came to like maintaining things. So I kind of went on the internet and I came across this page. If you've been working in Apostrophe CMS for a while, this is probably one of the pages you would have come across on with Apostrophe 2 with regards to the modules that were available. The first thing I saw was that if I looked at this and I considered what we custom built for Umbraco and made it work with our Angular front end, majority of these modules actually would have solved all of those custom dev requirements straight away. And I'm sure there would have been some, additional customization needed on top of it, but looking at it straight away, I was like, this could have reduced a lot of heavy lifting almost instantaneously had we had an opportunity to go with this approach. The other thing I was looking at was a content management system that actually made it a lot easier, like a what you see is what you get kind of interface to reduce the burden on developers, because at Other Computer at the time, a lot of developers were doing content updates, and we needed a seriously good setup for access groups or East roles within the CMS, so we could provide access to the different country managers that were in different parts of the globe. So straight away, this kind of gave me this idea that, well, we need to build this large platform as we did for South Africa tourism, which is really at the pinnacle of complicated platforms that you can get, then a content management system like Apostrophe will work really well, even for smaller use cases that were just generally our bread and butter at Hello Computer at the time. So we decided to give it a go. And I wouldn't say it was the very first project we worked in, but we built a marketing website for an Australian client who had originally come to us looking at videos made by one of my previous predecessors in a build they did for South Africa Toyota, that was done in Orchard, and they were coming to us to actually talk specifically about Embraco. And I persuaded them otherwise, and I said, look, I've got a better approach for this. Why do we give this content management system a go? We had already gotten some familiarity in Apostrophe with just a few internal projects and other smaller ones, but this was the first large one we were going to try and do a lot of customization on. So the client was Generation Life. They're a financial service provider based in Melbourne. They've got an office in Sydney as well. We undertook the project and decided, well, let's see if we can create a series of custom components for them that allows them to have flexibility on its appearance. So there were a couple of different swatches that were created. You have this blue that you see on the screen here, but also a green and orange, and I think there might even be like a monochrome version of it as well. And the components themselves, the style of them didn't change, and your composition didn't change. It was just the color that needed to change. So we drove a lot of the customization for it from drop-down selectors inside the actual widget itself, which made it quite easy for clients, in this case, to create various different content layouts that they needed depending on the financial service products that they were going to build out. And we rolled this out, and the good news is we delivered the project 7 days ahead of schedule. We created these 20 reusable components that really just allowed them to build out pages very quickly, and we reduced the cost of content delivery substantially, around 30%. Is quite a large reduction in retainer costs for a client. So a lot of this is centered around, if you're talking to new clients, you definitely want to tell them that their retainer fees are going to drop if they go with something that just makes it a lot easier to manage. That's kind of the point we're trying to get to. We didn't want developers to be inundated with a lot of content-related work. We want to really enable the content manager to do the advanced development. So kind of still had this thing at the back of my mind. It's the way we positioned ourselves at Hello Computer at the time was that we built custom web applications, but we also developed content-driven websites. Custom web apps didn't really have much of an emphasis on content management, so you didn't have to really cater for an experience for a content manager in most cases. We could still build out like an Angular front end and use something like Loopback or Strapi.io to build out APIs that connected to this Angular front end. But then there were these cases where we needed content, and we had an opportunity to try out something using the headless module from Apostrophe, and basically have Apostrophe provide content to an Angular front end, just as this content provider in a headless fashion. So it worked out pretty well. We then decided, well, look, we hadn't dropped this approach to having an SPA like Angular used in the front end. There was a large push internally, even from guys on the team. They still liked the idea of working in SPAs. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to go down this angle. Let's give it a go. So we eventually did that on the Toyota website. So Toyota South Africa, when we built out, it was launched in 2018. We actually built out the Angular portion of it first. A lot of the endpoints for content were stubbed. They were running from JSON originally, until we could decide how we'd want to approach the headless portion. So they gave us an opportunity then to figure out how to set up a headless module within the CMS to provide content to the front end while still catering for states between like a drop state, which could be used for QA, quality assurance or staging environment essentially, and then your production content that you'd see live. So the combination of using workflow and the headless module, we would work off a default draft document going to QA. It wasn't really need to have like two separate environments for that. We basically used one that provide both states to work staging front end on Angular as well as a live front end on Angular. And it worked similar with the data we received from Toyota, which is for all these vehicles. So all the content that you would see, anything that dealt with marketing information, even this message you see at the top here, it says welcome to Toyota, and that image, all of that was getting driven from the content management system from Apostrophe, whereas we would have model images and the actual vehicles data that would be coming from Toyota via an API. But there was a lot of like collaborative points. And we'd obviously have to inject a lot of images for vehicles. We would then run that inside Apostrophe as well. But at this point in time, there definitely internally we're getting to a large familiarity of working with the CMS and how we could use it in different ways. But it still kind of figured that, in a lot of ways, we've been using these different tech stacks, and while it's fine in some instances that work really well like that, Apostrophe CMS at full mastery can really be reduced down. It will reduce a project's complexity down to a single service. So in our case, like running the front end within Apostrophe content, even custom data, actually just became the next iteration of that. It allowed us to look at ways to handle this. And unfortunately with Toyota, they left our doors before we had an opportunity to really do a complete transition across to using Apostrophe completely. We were actually going to drop the Angular side of the project, even the custom data coming from Toyota via Strapi and Loopback, and run it all into Apostrophe CMS because we could handle everything inside there. We understood how to do it. Some really nice caching mechanisms in there. We could set up custom buttons within the admin system to allow it to clear that cache in the event that some new data is coming through, or just leverage off the cache's timeouts. There's so many ways we're looking at leveraging it, and also the way we built up the actual Apostrophe version of the front end. The front end actually catered for Lexus South Africa as well as Hino South Africa, which is the truck division for Toyota. We'd built out the front end in a way all you need to do really is pass in the brand slug, be it Toyota, Lexus, or Hino, and you'd get the specific styling, a look and feel, fonts, everything necessary for Lexus to be displayed and running perfectly fine. Next thing is obviously we got the load times of the website super low. It was actually really running very well. Fortunately, like I said, at that point in time, we were about to, hand this over and get Toyota running on that new version, but accounts within marketing space, they work in 3-year cycles. We had to go into a pitch again, and unfortunately, we just didn't retain them. It's not to say it's a bad thing. I mean, I think the learnings that we got from that project kind of gave us the indication that we are now at full mastery on Apostrophe. We understand it very well, and we think it's an extremely powerful content management system. And this was all in Apostrophe CMS 2. So for us, when Apostrophe CMS 3 was announced, we knew that there was going to be a lot of other things that probably then changed, but for the better. Obviously the dropping of the workflow module, which had in Apostrophe 2, and it's kind of built into Apostrophe 3, this idea of API first data is really great. And just as recently as Astro, which we're super interested in, because we want to try and see if we can leverage our SPA skills with React to actually work with the content management system. So we got to a number of different projects, a lot of smaller ones. We built out a website for Critis Care Hospital. It's the trust. It's based in Cape Town, and we built out a website for Michael Solutions, which used localization. There was an entity in South Africa, the UK, and then a split in the Netherlands where it is Dutch as well as English. So all of which is still in Apostrophe 2. The Hada group, which is part of our group, that's actually the group holding company for the old studios. McCann's one of our partners as part of the IPG group across the globe. And Other Computer, which was our original website, running in Apostrophe as well, and now our new website of Studios, is in Apostrophe 3. So we kind of then shaped it in a way to say, well, Apostrophe for us is website development. We obviously look at running in this case, it is running in very modern web frameworks, and we think it's scalable and very future-proof. When we speak to clients, we just show them a lot of the projects that we've built in it, our connection with the community, the work that what's possible with it, and it's kind of given us a sense of an ecosystem of Apostrophe and a model being our content management system, but connecting to various tools or a lot of platforms that we would typically use as part of our development approach. And as I mentioned, we largely sense it within a marketing space, but and this ecosystem is kind of catering for majority of people looking to add products and services on their website and market it quite well in a 360 view. So we do consider all of those things to try and see how it all works together. But as I said, it doesn't necessarily have to exist within the space of just a website. For Quick to Scale Hospital Trust, we actually built a gender-based violence screening tool for them that the nurses and social workers could use so they can gather information anonymously from people. As they come into hospitals, they don't have to worry about this. This detail essentially gets captured to allow them to assess patients and to provide them with some counseling if needed, or send them to, or basically send them details so they could forward them to social workers. So there's obviously a wide array of uses over here, both internal and external, in terms of the types of tools that can be built to the system. But where we are now is because we have a very similar kind of approach to what we build. We're trying to see if we can create a toolbox of common functions, components, you name it, something that we can use across all the clients that we work. So we have all these common requirements. We don't really want to be reinventing the wheel all the time. In a lot of ways, if somebody said to me that they want a website, I'm going to assume that there's going to be a slider of some kind in there. And what we'd want to do is look at what's common across most of the projects that we built and see how we can build common tools for us to use going forward. And just ensure that there's still the potential for it to be modified regarding the actual brand, as well as they look and feel the different fonts that they want to apply, and even the ability to extend it with additional functionality. We're looking at building something called Juniper. It's a web dev system that contains all these common elements. It's got basically a library, these custom modules for creating complex data, dynamic content types, supporting widgets. It has base functionality for all of these things. So we would essentially extend these widgets or these content types that we've created to create more complex ones and more specific ones for the brand. We've built up I would say a pretty robust solution so far. I mean, we have all these, what would be called the common things that you would typically see in the websites that we build. And then we have overrides that sit on top of that. So for the theme, you have theme specific overrides or theme pieces that get defined, and even theme services, so additional services related to any kind of external things that they need to integrate with. Where we still stick to our common ecosystem, for email sending, SEO, and if a client wants to switch those things out, we still have the ability to do that. It's obviously all separated and nicely packaged. And so far, we've built out quite a number of different websites, and we're starting to do them in a really rapid rate. So we built out Josie My Josie websites, this Digital Youth Academy, and these use exactly the same code base. They just look vastly different. The Sadhwani websites, NGO, we do work with McCann Globals. I mean, we're doing sure that McCann in Germany. And kind of where we're looking to go next is this is a unified code base, obviously with these different themes, and it has been back on the back of what we've learned about apostrophe assembly. And just us working in apostrophe assembly before with the previous client that was introduced to us by the apostrophe team, we see that there's an opportunity for us to get Juniper actually running within apostrophe assembly and allow our internal teams outside of development be able to actually set up new websites while the development team actually goes and creates the various skins and specific brand assets that are needed for it to have its unique look and feel, and then hosting kind of catered for. But that is where we're going for at the moment. I'm obviously in the process of trying to put together the business case for this, but as we try to run things in parallel, so we're still doing the hosting on our side and in various providers. We use Microsoft Azure, Heroku currently for a lot of these things, but at some point in time we're looking to actually migrate into apostrophe assembly. It's just an indication that's pretty much where we're going with this. What has been interesting now, though, is the introduction of Astro. We are actually going back to this, just reconsidering some of the approaches we've taken here to see if there's a way we can leverage off of Astro and React and when creating these widgets and themes that we are doing for clients. So we might actually do a second iteration of the system that kind of leverages off that. But yeah, we're still playing with those with Astro and actually testing it out internally. But yeah, that's basically where we are and how things are going. We don't have much else to present. I think it's more a case of questions, and if anybody wants to ask me something, I'm happy to. Yeah.
This has been great. Thank you, Nick. Yeah, I think we definitely will have the chat. So folks don't already have the chat tab open. You can hit that chat bubble in the top right of the window and pull the chat thing open, and we get some questions in there, and then I have some questions I'd love to kind of add into the mix as well. So I'll just quickly note Flip asking about assembly. Is it only for subdomains instead of individual domains? So there's a wide range of, answering that question specifically from the apostrophe assembly kind of platform features. You can configure by default, if you create a new assembly site, it will run on a subdomain of the instance that the CMS is running on. However, you can configure a production hostname and then point the DNS for any full domain, top-level domain to the assembly instance, and it will render that. So you can run subdomains and individual domains within an assembly instance. Yeah, so really, I think it works. Nick's super excited to kind of see. Even I know we've talked in various points of time about the system that you're building with Juniper and how it can work in a multi-site context, and this is great to see it kind of fleshed out to this melody.
Yeah, I think, look, the next step for us really is we're looking to kind of package it as a business offering. But we do realize, in a lot of ways, our development cycle originally was quite long. We've been trying to shorten that development cycle by creating this layer of commonality, and that will essentially be something that we'll push onto the Alt Studio platform as an offering, and that we market it. But my point being is we don't necessarily want developers to be worrying about these things. I mean, we have obviously other intentions as well, on the point of having a page where people can actually go and see this, and it's been promoted as such, is that even the part of actually costing it needs to become easier. And also enabled for other people. So I don't necessarily have to be involved in costing sessions for these things. That it's quite easy for one of the project managers to do it on the spot. We have a different interfaces, try and enable them and make it easy for them to do things. But, I mean, just on
predictability there, it sounds like it's really key for those folks, right?
Correct, yeah. The other thing that's been successful in that case, or at least a part of it that's been successful, is that content management is no longer a function of development. It's been something that's been outside of development purely because the other departments have been able to understand how to do it, and it's been made easy through apostrophe, so it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for that initial question. For the thing, yeah, other folks that are in the chat and others that mix up, some folks on the Apostrophe team, but some of those I know aren't as familiar with all of the work that Hello Computer and all studios are doing. So, questions from anybody, please don't hesitate to toss them in the chat, and we'll get them kind of mixed into the discussion here. But Nick, one of the things that really stood out to me with what you were sharing was sort of the scope of all of the different ways you've built projects with Assembly with Apostrophe with other CMSs over kind of quite a long span of time now. And like it'd be cool to hear any more detail around like, you know, how is the way that you're working really changing? Obviously there's like you know, there's this example of, you know, kind of shared modular front-end components that can really accelerate the creation of a, you know, accelerate the development of a new site. But even, I'm just curious, like the day-to-day, you know, the experience of your team, the way you manage some of these projects, like, you know, I'm curious, like, any more detailed examples of how the way you work has changed, you know, influenced by the different technologies over the years.
Well, look, I mean, it's chalk and cheese if I had to compare it to 2017, 2018 period compared to now. For example, then that, you know, during the 2017, 2018 period, we're having to look after multiple solutions that were built in so many different things. And the issue behind that is you've got a team that would have a level of competency. Perhaps one person was an expert in, let's say, WordPress dev, and another person who was an expert in using Orchard in a .NET case. And then obviously, between the two of them now, you've got to ask the one guy who's inundated with work, and he's looking at some other platform to go and take a look at an issue that you're experiencing somewhere else. And it just limits the possibility that the actual workload is shared. So what I essentially wanted was that if we had one unified direction to point in, that was a tool set, well, actually like a tool, and the tool in this case being the actual content management system that we use, would provide us with a depth of experience and knowledge in one place that solved a number of different things. And the first difficult challenge was that case of getting to, just reducing the fragmentation. Because it's not essentially even coming from development sometimes when you have the mandate to go and build something. You might get a brief from a client that, hey, we've got a content management system already. It's built in this particular content management system. Can you guys look after it? And the typical response from business is always been, yeah, let's do it. You know, they'll accept it, but they don't really grasp the ramification of that, of accepting that. And you know, they look at the internal team and developers just labeled as a developer. You know, as those problems do arise. What's happened is now it's a bit different. You know, we've got a number of different business units all familiar with the fact that we use Apostrophe as the CMS to build our solution. And they're fully aware of, you know, that there are other potentials out there. But if you really want to get to completing something a lot faster, or, you know, just within the time frame and within budgets, we should be leveraging off the skill set that we have. So conversations like that have ended up being a lot easier. It also had to say that in a lot of cases what business we go after. But I think the proof is in the pudding. You know, the Juniper system, for instance, that we built up, it started in beginning 2023 or maybe end 2022, and I had the idea for a while, was trying to get it up and running, but the actual proof is in the pudding in that we started rolling out a number of websites in the second half of 2023, and we're producing them at a very rapid rate where the developers were just focused on doing the actual development work, and all content loading were completely offloaded outside to the other departments and to clients. So yeah, I think it's actually definitely worked. You know, I haven't seen many constraints now, and a lot of the constraints that we experienced before was purely just driven from the fact that people had a lack of understanding in the space. It's just becoming easier.
I know from my experience and from talking to some of our other agency partners as well that like there, you have benefits of specializing in a smaller set of technologies, right? So it's just focusing on apostrophe, building up those skills internally. You're gonna over time be able to be much more efficient with that, move so much faster with that. But then that's there's a tension between that specialization and the value that comes from that with sometimes you have a client that says, this is my technology that you have to use. I need this in WordPress because of a very specific business reason, or I need this in some other, technology platform. Do you guys like run up against that? And there's some, recognizing there's some value in sort of being technology agnostic, but there's like a tension between the specialization and the value that comes from that, right?
Oh, definitely. Look, I mean, just to give you clarity, I mean, on internal teams are split. We have the apostrophe individuals are really good at building out apostrophe solutions. But then we also have competency within React. We are building out React solutions. Generation Life is the clients. We've built up their investment portal for them, which is using basically a very vanilla API that we produce, as well as React as the front-end framework. But what we really like is the fact that there's Astro who can combine those two. So that's the one side. And the other question you ask is whether it's a client then coming to us and saying we've got the content management system. Yes, we write up to that all the time. That's actually another part of the actual strategic selling point, right? Sometimes I'm given the opportunity to present a case. If a client comes to us with WordPress, for instance, I can go and send them some information I've been prepared to say, why we would recommend using apostrophe over WordPress. You don't win all those fights all the time. I think Tom here would know I had a recent run-in with a custom SSL certificate. Clients very adamant that they want to use that custom SSL certificate as opposed to just using one that is less encrypted, and what do I do? And it still provides you with all the particular safety you would need and things. You get clients that are, doing that pretty frequently, so it's the flavor changes. So just so you know, we do have a large website build to do right now. It has to be WordPress based. I think the understanding of this is that, we still have a guiding light that we want to focus on. We do have to roll with the punches. I think everybody in this industry does. Can I say punches? Because as much as I don't really want to be working in WordPress, I prefer to be sticking to, the tech stack focus. It does happen that we have to go outside of the boundaries every now and then. And it's understandable. It's just some clients, I think, it's something I've never quite understood when you have a client that doesn't really have an understanding of the technicalities of things, dictating what technology to use. But it's not to say that I think they make those decisions based on people's opinions that they do trust, and there's some reasons for that sometimes, and sometimes we can't win the argument, or sway them in a direction that we think is better. I think it all boils down to competency, and we still have a curiosity with other things. But at least I'm trying to harness that curiosity in a more direct, focused manner.
Yeah, no, it's great to hear the sort of pragmatic, approach that obviously has to be taken with certain opportunities, just to stay successful, at large. But then kind of the kind of how you're talking about that guiding light and how that influences sort of the bigger strategy, how those two things can coexist within the team. I think there's a great question in the chat, and I know we're coming up at the hour here, so maybe this is a good place to a good question to end on, unless any other big things pop up. But yeah, Haruna asking here, regarding your Juniper toolbox, is there something that you would want to be included in the CMS to make your life easier or to speed up your workflow even further? I think this is, tell us how we can continue, with how you're working now and the direction you're seeing apostrophe going. How can this, kind of even further enhance like what you're building?
Well, I'm not sure if I can actually state this down, or you guys are working on this dashboard. It's I like what I like about that is that it works pretty well from a apostrophe pro to the regular install perspective. I think we we had it where everything was kind of monolithic. We had one code base that's catering for a number of different websites. We're even deploying that from that single code base. Some part of it say it's not really ideal, but in our case, it seemed to be working perfectly fine. We might have a different configuration and setup for different clients. So what I would like is maybe, like something dealing with this particular assembly setup where perhaps there's a way it can actually extract a configuration, or at least a setup, into a separate code base. I have these concerns sometimes where we're building the way we're building now, and we need to do our migration to another platform. We might be giving away a lot of intellectual property as a result of what we built into the other solution, especially because we do have competitors. But yeah, it's just something I'm trying to figure out how to solve. The way to do it is we could work with code very fast, and we could make it so that there's a repo for each client, and then kind of go into this Apothecary Pro setup. Should we need pro modules that like work with it? That's one way to configure it. The way I like it is that because it's agency control, the ability to go set up a brand new website was not the responsibility of the developer, but rather that of an account manager or a project manager that receiving payments and information related to that. Otherwise, tools-wise, I have some things that I think would be really rad. Like, obviously, AI is becoming quite a big thing now. There's this idea I've had and wants to do for a while, and maybe it's something I can actually pick up by Apothecary, but you've got an OpenAI module already, which provides access to GPT. What I would actually like is I want the ability to fine-tune that model based on the content that exists within the content management system. So the ability to create a copywriter that is providing copy in return in the same style as the rest of the content that's loaded into the CMS. That's something that I think would be pretty rad. Like, we would use that pretty frequently. Not to say it's going to replace an individual doing that work, but it'll at least provide a very good first draft of content that they need to write for a page. The other bin, I'm not sure if you guys have looked at this yet, but the idea of maybe like customizing that AI a bit where you can select specific widgets within the CMS, give them an indication of their intent. So, there's maybe a description that gets put aside on each widget defining what it is. Could be part of the actual schema definition when you actually do it in the index.js file. But the point then to say that this widget will be able to do this type of content structure for you. And then using that description as a way to actually generate page layouts of the widget that get added and then create dummy content that would sit inside it, or perhaps actual content that's driven from the fine-tuned model. Like a lot of that would be then generating page layouts to make it possible for guys to get to a point of having, template for clients, and still working with the fact that we build out all these custom templates based on the brand. So we create a theme still, and we then further empowering the actual project manager or the account manager and the designer to get things done for the client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of overlap with stuff that we have either in kind of early design concepts, or some of this. Some things are even a little bit further along in the roadmap. An example being not exactly generating content for the page, but generating metadata for like SEO purposes, and working through how that can be how the generation of that content is influenced by like other metadata in the site, right? So it's not just a generic prompt, but it's actually informed by information from the global document and other components of the site, so that it pulls all that together to give you the best possible first suggestion at like a meta description or an SEO title and things like that.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Yeah, I think maybe this is. I know Paul jumping in here. The question right before we break, to check it is do you ever plan to make the Juniper system something that might be available to other folks, or is this going to stay internal to all studios for the foreseeable future?
Honestly, I haven't decided. we could consider it something external, or I would just need to check, sit with the guys and we can look at that. The point being, we have to establish some kind of a version control on it, and just make sure we're doing consistent releases for it. We like to get to the point where internally we're at least functioning pretty well cohesively as a team.
Yeah.
And then, we can most definitely consider that open up to the community at a whole. Or maybe just in collaboration with you guys, it's something that gets done like as part of pro modules. I don't know, new opportunities where we can always take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we love to do is facilitate with a number of partners of ours and customers, like how to kind of get more comfortable just sort of like releasing things as part of the normal practice of your engineering team. It's something that we get a lot of joy out of, kind of engaging with people through the open source development process, and I think it helps kind of hone the quality of the work in a certain way. So love to hear that would even be something you would consider, and happy to help facilitate that further through more discussions like this.
Cool. No, that's very
cool.
Awesome.
Well, I want to well, let folks get out of here. This has been a great hour. Nick, thank you again so much for not only doing this session, but the previous attempt where you had to get up in the middle of the night to come to an empty Discord room. I think this is well worth the wait and well worth the reschedule. I'm just going to drop it in the chat for anybody that any folks that are still with us. If you want to check out more of the work from Nick and his team, it's just an example of one of the starter kits that we worked with the Hello Computer and All Studios folks to build that, so you can see some of that work and check that. That's open source. You can start a project with that, and certainly there's some feedback that can come through there. So yeah, that's maybe a good follow-up stuff, and we'll kind of package up this recording and share this out with more folks. But I think great example of more discussions like this we're excited to have in the future. So thanks everyone for joining, and thank you again, Nick. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been really great. So yeah, for the last time, I was super amped and pumped to actually give the presentation at 2:00 in the morning. So it's nice to at least do it at a time that's reasonable for everybody.
You did it right. I'm sure all the better for the fact that it's a waking hour for you, and you're not just in the night. So
thumbs up. Let's get it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, go enjoy the rest of that sun, and we'll talk to everybody soon. So thanks again.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right.
Again.